All right, everybody, welcome back here again on the Pat Flynn Show. We have Mr. Dr. Jim, as I've been calling him, Jim Madden back. Yeah, Jim. And Aleks. And not only that, but oddly enough, Aleks is actually in the same house as I am right now.
Watch this. Hang on a second. Watch this.
Check this out. This is just for the watchers. The listeners won't. But you can now see Aleks on my screen because he's just on the other side of my basement. So
you should have told people that just in the middle of the podcast, have them like pop up.
right. Just to show up right here, right? Yeah. And in case people are wondering why Aleks is in my house, which happens kind of frequently actually. We got our Strong on Virtual certification happening this weekend. So while most other people will be tuning in digitally, Aleks and I will be in the same location. So just gearing up for that. But Jim, good to have you joining us. And we're going to talk about, I guess what we're going to call the Maximal-Minimalist program. But what's new with you this past week?
Not much. I got my second 28 kilogram.
Nice.
Right? So I my match set, and did my first giant workout with my 228s today. Went very well.
So how big of a difference did it make going from the 24 to the 28 with the double clean and press?
Less than I thought it would, maybe less than I hoped it would. Because I know this is all going to end in the 32s at some point here, right? Yeah, you know, my desire to keep it a little light is probably not going to end, right? Or it's not going to work out. So what I do today, Jeff has a kind of how to take your heavyish kettlebell and make it lightish, kind of a prep phase in the program.
Right.
So since I've never worked with double 28s before. I thought I would do that. And so today I ended up doing 34 doubles in 30 minutes.
Cooking.
Yeah. And it was pretty easy, right?
Yeah. That's just a light cardio session.
Yeah. So I think probably what I'm going to end up doing is settle into just starting the regular giant without the strength buy-in with the 28s. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The whole point of getting to the 28s was I didn't want it to be just like a chill cardio session. Right? So,
by the way, so after Jeff, after we had the chat with Jeff, Aleks then had the chat with Jeff, and then right after we had the chat with Dan John, Aleks then had a chat with Dan John.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I'm just waiting for Aleks and I'll have a chat just independently with Jim. Aleks, are there any other ways you want to be original with your
podcast? First of all, I would like to say that it was a completely happy accident that I had both Dan and Jeff on in that order. I had set things up with them. I mean, I knew Dan was on your podcast regularly, but to be fair, I've known him for some time, so I feel like we're neck and neck there. But when it comes to Jeff, I didn't know that he was on your show until the day we had something set up for the week before, but because there was a cold snap in Colorado, he was like, "Can we put this off till next week?" So it was going to be like early February that we were going to do our podcast together. And then we put it off till the next Friday. So I guess it would have been maybe the 16th or 19th or something. And he's like, "Oh, I just did Pat's show too." I'm like, "I'm never going to hear the end of this. Pat is totally going to accuse me of copying, and I'm going to have no proof because I mean, he did technically do your show first." So
maybe it was like Dan and Jeff both thought, I've got to cleanse my reputation now. After having been on with these other two clowns, right?
These animals, yeah.
I have to
nice palate cleanser.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I just see Aleks just constantly refreshing the Pat Flynn Show feed to see what guest he's going to invite on next. So.
Exactly. I'm actually next week. Ed Fazer is going to be on. So
yeah. All right, so good stuff. All right, so Jim, you're go ahead. Uh-huh.
Doing those. So I tweaked my knee last Friday doing jiu-jitsu. And I haven't rolled all week, right? Kind of, just out of pure caution, right? But I've been able to do all those double clean and presses with no problem with that knee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like another virtue of that movement, right?
Yeah, same thing. I've had a few knee tweaks, nothing major from martial arts, and the hinging generally always you could still accommodate that. I found it's fairly gentle on the knees.
Yeah, and I was a little worried because I have found. Say if I'm going to do doubles with a set of 20 kilogram kettlebells, no problem, right? But as the kettlebells get bigger, I have to kind of do some weird stuff with my knees to accommodate the backswing, right? And I've at times have felt tension in my knees doing double kettlebells, right? And so I was worried when I got those 28s if I was going to feel that, and I didn't. So I think if I went up to the 32s, I think I would feel a little tension in the knees on that backswing as I kind of point them out, right?
Yeah.
The 28s really hit the sweet spot. It's probably about as heavy as I could do with my knees right now. So,
well, here's an idea. I wonder, what's your hip mobility like?
I think it's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, like I have no problem doing some pretty good inverted stuff in jiu-jitsu.
He chokes people with his shins, Aleks.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, now, compared to like my 16-year-old, like jiu-jitsu, nut son, not great. Right. But I think for about as good a hip mobility as you expect from a weathered 47-year-old guy, probably pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah.
There was one other.
It's probably something upstream why I feel that tension in my knees when I do a double kettlebell, right?
It could be. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't think we have enough information, but I always look a little bit upstream and think like, what is their hip mobility like? Could be a lot of different things, but that's the first thing that came to mind, because it's like if it starts to get wider, maybe your knees have to bow inward, as it gets wider. But yeah, it will remain a mystery. Good luck with it.
Yeah. So, these are really good questions, right? So I find, and that what you cue is not necessarily what happens, right?
Yeah.
And it's an important thing, right? I find anytime and it only comes up for me on doubles, right? When I'm doing two kettlebells, if I keep cued so that my knees are pointing north, right? That they're pointing, that my feet are pretty much pointing north, my knees are tracking well of them, no problems. It's when things get a little wide and I bow the knees out to make room for the kettlebells, right? And I do have really short legs, which I think that could be it.
Oh, okay. That almost certainly has something to do with it, because a lot of people, I have like long stork-like legs. So for me, it's not that big of a deal. But, I wonder, this is going to be unorthodox, and I'm sure Pat and I are going to receive a million emails about why I'm wrong. But if you did outside the knees cleans, that might not be a bad idea. So it's more like a conventional stance, to use the powerlifting parlance.
Yeah.
I've done that before for swings, just for fun. I mean, I never did it for a prolonged period of time, but I'd be willing to bet that would probably, provided you can keep your back straight at the bottom, obviously, that would probably be a good option for you. The other thing too, is that if you, rather than having some people will have their hands like this and then they adjust, as it comes up to the rack. But if you have your hands like this, like the inverted V, I know Jeff Newport's a fan of that, actually. That might do something. I mean, I think it just reduces the distance, or I think it just reduces a little bit of the width that you have to have in your stance. But I'd be curious if either of those things help.
Yeah. So, I mean, luckily it's not been a problem now, right? When I go to the 32s, I think I'll have to be really cognizant of it.
For sure.
So you went with the, this might be before we start talking workouts and programming, this might be a good topic. You went with the rep kettlebells, right, Jim?
Yes.
And that's a common question I get about, hey, what brand of kettlebells are good these days? What are worth getting?
One of my 28s is on it. One is rep.
Okay. And what's the Jim Madden review so far?
The Jim Madden review and the James Patrick Madden review, my son, who's getting to be a bit of a kettlebell aficionado, both prefer the rep.
Oh, really? Over the on it. Interesting.
Yeah,
any particular reasons?
Yeah, and it's, as you know, I'm sort of this like on it fanboy, and I'm waiting for Joe Rogan to call. Joe,
yeah.
Okay.
Look, we could flip these opinions as simple as it is to sign a check, my friends.
One phone call, Joe, and I would really, I could be convinced.
I hope I haven't given the impression that I'm somehow not susceptible to bribes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely am. Yeah.
Anyway, and so so there's and this could all be subjective, right? But both Patrick, my son Patrick, and I had the sense that when you use chalk on that, the rep fitness kettlebell is a little rougher when you get it. Okay. But it kind of absorbs the chalk. It stays white longer after you work out, so that the roughness gets filled in, and it really hits that sweet spot between, like not losing it, but not tearing your hands up. Right. Whereas the on it one's got, I think, probably a higher grade finish on it, but it's still a little slack, and the chalk kind of remains on the surface of it, and it feels like it's sliding around a little bit.
That is a subtle but important detail.
Yeah. And I found that when my 40 kilogram I have was what it still is one of a Dragon Door one I bought in like 2006.
The
right?
unfinished.
Yeah, that really enamel shiny handle. Remember
Okay.
yeah, I hate that thing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find it really it wants to let go.
That was that the first year they started putting that coating on?
I think so. Yeah.
Because before they started putting the coating on, those are my favorite bells, but you can't get
Yeah.
them anymore.
Yeah, it has this like shiny.
Yeah.
Almost
Yep.
on it. And I've never like, and so both my son and I both find that the rep is really good in that it takes the chalk and you get this great balance between being too slick versus tearing your hands up. Right.
Yeah, that's good. So I've got mostly
open calluses on both my hands.
Yeah.
I went in today and I did 68 clean and presses with the 28s, and it didn't spread those calluses any further at all.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've always been, for a long time, I've been using like all my bells here are Dragon Door. My favorite are the old, it must've been before 2006, because they existed before I got into kettlebells. Aleks, you know them. They're the ones at Dragon Gym without any finish on them whatsoever.
Yeah.
You can't get those anymore. So I can't recommend that because they're impossible to find. If you can somehow on like eBay or something, get a hold of those kettlebells. They're beautiful. I've been using, I'll give a shout out. They commented on a recent video, Kettlebell Kings over at the gym I'm training at. And those are good bells.
Are they powder coated? Is that?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I've been keeping it very basic with the kettlebell training, at the gym. So I'm not doing like high rep, heavy double snatches for time or anything like that. So I haven't,
two hands anyhow at the gym.
Yeah. Right. So I haven't like put them like, I haven't really pushed I haven't pushed it enough to really, I guess, just to test the subtle nuances as you have, Jim, with these. But dimension wise, feel wise for the basic exercise, very happy with those. So, all right. So, so if people are just looking for, I guess, some good reps, some good brands, there's some ideas there. Aleks, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I'm a big fan of the Dragon Door bells as well. I've used some other ones that I really like, but I think in terms of consistency, and I haven't used any of their new ones, so I can't really, speak to that, but I've always been impressed by those. I've had a few
have
others
you used Strong First new line yet at all?
I might have, off the top of my head, I can't think of it, but I know that they have some really good quality bells. I have seen a lot of people talk about enjoying their use of their Strong First bells. I can't, unless I've been to maybe like the Toshner's gym, that he might have some. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I have heard nothing but good things about them. I think they perform better, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, the scene's different because now, like, I don't know, like all the companies must have like found out like what the way to make a decent kettlebell was. So they're all kind of pretty similar now. It's not like 10 years ago when it was hard to find a decent kettlebell. Now it's pretty easy.
Here's the Dragon Door. The one I'm talking about, it's like 2006 model, right? Mm-hmm. So, right. It's a 15-year-old kettlebell. So they definitely could have changed quite a bit.
Right. Yeah. I think they have too. I think if we're thinking of the same model, I think that people were genuinely dissatisfied with that one and they did change. All right. So let's turn to the topic, the Maximal-Minimalist program. And there's two ways I want to approach this. One is I want to talk about the sketch you sent me just the other day, Jim, and we can build on that. But also in the framework of a question from a gentle listener. So Aleks and I, the last conversation that we had is we kind of played around with the prisoner's dilemma. And the idea there is, hey, if you only had 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week to reach a goal, what would you do, right? And the idea of the thought experiment is it helps you prioritize, focus on the essentials, whatever. Somebody emailed me and he said that he would want to hear what the maximalist minimalist program would be. So you're a billionaire. You have no time restraints. You only have a cat that your butler feeds, right? So you have no restrictions in terms of equipment, in terms of time, in terms of money, but you still want to be efficient, right? So what would that look like? So we can hang a. It's kind of an interesting thought experiment, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, if you're a tenured professor, how would you do it? Right.
Yeah. If you're a tenured, if you have a Jim's life, what would you do? Right. We'll hang a lantern on. Do we want to start with that, or do we want to start with what you came up with, Jim?
Oh man, it's an interesting thought experiment, right? Okay. And it's just with respect to fitness.
Yeah. And now we have to kind of like you goal orient it, right? Because that's always a key. So let's say like broad general physical preparedness, right? You want to be like sufficiently strong. You want to look good. You want to be lean, but you're not worried about being the best in the world.
Yeah.
And you don't have any obvious real restraints, right? So the idea with like the prisoner's dilemma is like you might actually leave stuff out that you could otherwise do or might be useful, but because you're so restrained, you're just cutting that out, right? It's nothing but the essentials. Yeah.
This goes to my, it's really important to me is like fitness for what, right? Like we have to, there's like you have too many variables just to maximize, right? You have to limit the variables. You have to have an end right there we're working towards, right? And for me, I think the ideal will always involve some kind of skill acquisition. There's something I want to get good at, right? Like I said, so whether it's sport, martial art, performance of some sort, right? There's something I want to get good at, right? And I'd want the bulk of my time on that, on getting good at something, right? And so then have whatever else I'm doing is in support of the stuff that I want to get good at, right? And the way that plays out for me is jujitsu, right? So I'm going to spend most of my training hours on jujitsu, right? And then anything I do over and above jujitsu, I will do at the absolute minimum to enable the jujitsu, right? The minimum that allows me to maximize the jujitsu, right? And so, for me, that means, like probably about a 30-minute workout a day, and then like 2 hours of jiu-jitsu a day too, right? Right.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, right? And I've been trying to encourage this more for people lately because it's I think it's important, right? Is that you have something external to the gym that you're working on, whatever that is.
Yep.
And it's dawned upon me that I'm actually somewhat lacking in that in my life right now, right? Now it's, because for so long I always had martial arts, but I've been out of that since I've got to Wisconsin. I just haven't done that. Now I'm also so in the habit of working out and I enjoy training. That's not a big issue for me because I like just, but I really don't have any like physical thing external to the gym right now. So it's funny. We've been talking about this and I'm like, I should follow my own advice.
What is my advice?
Yeah, like what is this thing I'm working on towards like outside of the gym? I mean, there are general things. Like, I mean, like one is just like I want to be a good role model for my kids. Like that's always one thing, right? But nothing like athletic or competitive right now. So yeah. I don't know, Aleks, do you have any?
Well, kind of. I mean, I have something in mind. There's a Muay Thai gym not far from where I live. And in fact, it is the gym where I got started in my physical culture journey back in like 2006. And they have a good boxing program there. In fact, this gym in particular was the one where Houston Alexander, who was a mixed martial artist, I would see James nodding in recognition. He used to train there. In fact, I bumped into him once there. And let me tell you something, that dude—
You called him sir. You called him sir.
I didn't say anything. I think I just nodded timidly. And he was like, "How you living?" I remember that. That's the only thing he ever said to me. And I was like, "Hey," and then I just kept walking.
I'm living by your good graces, sir.
Yeah, exactly. But at any rate, they have a very good martial arts program there. The owner, it's called the Mick Doyle's Martial Arts Center. Mm-hmm. The owner was a 2-time world kickboxing champion. And really, like, you'd never guess because he's a mild-mannered, like, nice dude. But, I mean, he would wail on you if he needed to. I'm sure he wouldn't do it willy-nilly. But point is I wanted to get back into either start off with something simple like boxing, because they have a good boxing program there, or just go full mixed martial arts. But at the moment, I don't have anything in particular. But and partially, too, it's a time thing, but it's also a priorities thing. I work out very regularly, at least 5 days a week. So it's already like within my schedule to be able to do it. I would probably just have to reprioritize a few things and, depending on my energy needs, maybe shorten a few workouts. But yeah, at the moment, don't really have anything in particular.
Yeah. This was a hard thing for me at first too, when I realized I was going to have to like take a hit on my deadlift so I could get good at the triangle. Right.
Yeah.
There are these trade-offs, right? But for me to have a skill I'm pursuing has really fundamentally changed my life.
Yeah.
The other thing, maybe this is a cop out, or a rationalization, but you know, having gone from somebody who didn't like have any fitness in my life to seeing how much fitness spills over and enhances all other parts of my life.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of it as well, right? So like I know, like, because you know we're all working on different projects. Jim, you're working on a writing project. I just picked up another book I'm working on. Like I know I do better with those, with the more academic work when I have a steady fitness routine, right?
No, yeah. I mean, I'll say this, me, I'll even say like my jujitsu in a lot of ways is a means to my philosophy stuff. Like my head is better.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's better when that stuff is in my life.
Yeah. So it sounds weird, but I'm part of the reason I'm working out right now is to finish my book.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. You know, another thing too is, you know, it's a funny thing, you know, I think it's a quintessentially American thing. As soon as we start talking about this, we think we're talking about a sport, right? And we all three of us go right to like a sport.
Yeah, that's what I did. Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, so yesterday, you know, I did my morning mobility workout, and then I went out in my backyard and just played with a steel mace, right? And you know, I'm listening to music, and man, I really kind of figured out a great flow, a great sequence, and I nailed that thing, and it was like syncing with the music, and I realized I was dancing. Like I'm dancing with a steel implement, right? This is dance, and dance is a good thing, right? It's a human thing, right? And it was just really good for about 30 seconds to be really good at that. You know what I mean? I had acquired a skill, and I had learned how to do something, and you know, my brain was just like pow, and I felt all aligned with being, right? You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I guess for me, it could be a sport like jujitsu, or a martial art like jujitsu, or karate, or MMA, or Muay Thai, or soccer, or whatever. Or it could just be, I'm going to get really, really good at, you know, flows with a steel mace. I'm going to get really, really good at, you know, fill in the blank. But I think it's just to be progressing at a skill, right? I think is important. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like the idea of getting really, really good at something, because for most people, most of the time, that's attainable and that's worthwhile. And
Yes.
but that's different than being the absolute best at something, right? For which most people, it's not. Like this ties into virtue, right? Like what's the it's escaping me right now, but there's the vice, right, of setting unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
Right. What's Aquinas had us nailed down. Which one is it?
Hubris.
Right. Yeah. We're just like, if I set the goal right now, I'm going to be president of the United States. Right. And I'm just going to super stubborn about it and neglect everything else. Like that would be a vicious thing to do. Right. Because it's totally unrealistic for various ways. Right. But I like the idea of getting really, really good at something, because most people, especially in the gym, like you can get really, really good at pull-ups.
Yep.
And you might have to work on a couple of things to do that, right? You might have to lose some weight, for example, and you're going to have to practice pull-ups, and it's probably going to be good for you, for most people anyways, to get really good at pull-ups.
Yeah.
Even if you're not, you know, the best in the world at pull-ups, whatever that even is. But to get really, really good at something is to be impressive at that something at the same time, right?
Well, and Aleks, you're a strong first guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think this is part of the genius of strong first, right? I mean, like there was that great, I think it was Pavel recently had the strong first, you know, wood, right? And it was a put on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because strong first is not about just working out hard.
Mm-hmm.
Strong first is about getting good at the skill of strength, right?
Exactly.
And maybe the skill that you're going to do is you're going to get really good at military pressing a kettlebell. That's and dear gentle listener, like I defy you to ignore how complicated a skill just pressing one arm a kettlebell is. It is a complicated skill, and there are levels. There's black belt mastery of that skill out there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'll finish what you're going to say, and then I'll toss something in there about them.
The reason I think skill acquisition is so important, because it gets you off this idea that the point of the workout is to work hard. There's this weird sadism that we've built into, I guess it's masochism, right? That we've built into the fitness world. We're just pursuing hard for hard's sake, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not, and I think we end up damaging ourselves physically and mentally and psychologically by doing that. Like we're looking for acceptance in really weird places now. And our bodies bear it badly. So I like that idea. Like, no, go get really good at pressing a kettlebell, and guess what? You'll get in damn good shape along the way too. But
you know, a friend of mine, David Whitley once said, "I'm all about making hard stuff easy."
The Iron
And the Iron Tamer, exactly. And it is a really good approach to take to try to make hard things easy. Because do you want to be the guy who made something easy look hard, or the thing that is hard look easy, you know? And the only way to make something hard look easy is if you train it in a way where you stop before your skill starts to deteriorate. And the really the nice thing about the approach that Strong First takes is precisely that, is that you treat strength as a skill. Now, obviously, there are other elements of strength that I think go beyond just that, because I think, you know, you do have to work hard, but the point is not to drive yourself into the ground. And this is where people really, really go wrong. You know, you can have a challenging workout, but still walk away feeling like you've got enough energy for the rest of the day. You don't feel like, you know, you've basically fast forwarded your life to, like, you know, 1 a.m. the next morning, and it's only 10 a.m. in the morning, and you've got to try to figure out how you're going to get to, you know, to the next stop.
The pain you suffered.
Exactly. Yeah. It is, you know, it's interesting because, you know, in other languages, there's no term for workout. They'll say something like a lesson or training or something like that. But from what I know, the term workout comes from some old school strongman who commented on what amateurs did when they trained. And he would say they literally worked themselves out.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, I actually for a while tried to break myself from using the word. I mean, I found it irresistible, but I tried to break myself from using the word.
I feel like it's easier to relate to people if you say workout, because you're meeting them where they are. But what you say when you mean workout versus what they say is different. And so I think it's, in a way, it's almost easier to get them to update what workout means, as opposed to trying to get them to change their terminology. You know, like I'm going to say training session or lesson. It's hard to do that. It's very hard to do.
I love lesson.
Lesson's cool. Yeah, lesson.
Yeah.
Like you go to a black belt, you get a private lesson.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always liked, you know, Pavel, you know, we're going to practice it.
Yeah.
We're going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, up next, we're going to be practicing our 1-arm push-up. Everybody, find some space on the floor. Pavel, if you're listening to this, I'm doing this in good fun. Please do not strangle me next time you see me.
All right, let's so this is good. This is really good. All right, we've been kind of like maybe dancing around the question. So Jim, why don't we you mocked up Jim's Maximalist Minimalist.
Yeah.
Let's get it out there. And what we're going to do here is this is an experimental program.
Yeah.
So any of the gentle listeners who hear this, you want to try this, we're going to give you the prescription. Yeah. We ain't charging for it. We're just going to take notes, write it down here.
Gentle listener, you're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Right now realize you might just get what you pay for, but
exactly. Yeah.
But no, we would say, hey, if you're looking for Aleks, do me a favor. Hit mute when I'm talking, because I think I'm getting picked up on your mic here.
Aleks, just hit mute.
Yeah, we're in the we're in the again, we're in the same room, and I'm kind of an obnoxious talker. So, all right, that's better. So we encourage the listener, if you're looking for something efficient, effective, and kettlebell based, take notes, and we'd love to hear your feedback on this. So Jim, what do we have?
So first, a caveat. Like, as you know, I like block training. I don't like to work on everything at once. I like to work on one attribute at a time and then cycle back. However, if I were to work on everything at once, this is what I would do, right? And there are times when I think one will do this, right? And, you know, as the listener knows, that we've been talking to Jeff quite a bit, and Jeff likes to clean and press, and I agree the clean and press is awesome, right? And there's another program that I understand Pat has, the Prometheus, right? That has a lot of clean and press and front squat involved, right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So I really think with the clean, the press, and the front squat, you really cover everything. You got to hinge, you got to grind, right? You got push, you got pull, you've got squat, right? So I like that. If we're going to go a little less minimal, maximal minimal, right? Okay. And have two movements, I like the double clean and press and the double front squat. Okay. And So we want to put it together so that we can condition, we can maybe muscle up a little bit, we can still grind a little bit, all in one package. Okay.
Mhm.
So the idea is this will require that you have 2 sets of kettlebells. Okay. They wouldn't necessarily have to be evenly matched, right? Okay. But you've got 2 sets. You've got a heavy set and a light set.
Mhm.
On one day, you're going to take, on day A, we'll call it, you're going to take your light set and you're going to clean and press it for 5 sets of 10, or excuse me, for sets of 10, as many as you can get in 15 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay. So you're going to take your light kettlebells, clean and press them for sets of 10 for 15 minutes. Then you're going to take your heavy kettlebells and you're going to go sets of 5 for 15 minutes. Okay. 1/2 hour, you're done. All right. On B day, you're going to take your light kettlebells and you're going to front squat them for sets of 10 for 15 minutes. And then you're going to take your heavy kettlebells and clean and press them for 5s for 15 minutes, right? And then just rinse and repeat, okay? And I think that you're going to cover different rep ranges. You're going to explode, you're going to push, you're going to pull, you're going to grind, you do all the good stuff right there in a half an hour. I think ideally 3 days a week would do it, and in a nice neat package.
Beautiful. Can you just repeat it one more time, the structure, Jim?
Yeah, definitely. And maybe we'll whip up a PDF. We can link to this or something.
Yeah, if people want the PDF, we'll just put on the show notes. We won't even make you beg for it with reviews or anything. We appreciate the reviews, but we'll just put it on over at Chronicles of Strength. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That day is coming soon, though. I have a 4-day weekend coming up. So, okay, yeah.
Good stuff.
Anyway, so day A, right? Light kettlebells for as many sets of 10, clean and press for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy kettlebells, as many sets of 5 for front squat for 15 minutes.
Right. So we're pairing the light clean and press with the heavy front squats on a day.
On A day.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
And then on B day, you're going to take your light kettlebells and clean and press them for sets of 10 for 15 minutes. And your heavy kettlebells and squat them for 5s for 15 minutes. Right. And that's it. Right. So that's A, that's B. Just alternate those days for 3 days a week. Right. Don't do it 2 days in a row because it's pretty damn high volume.
Yeah.
Right. And that, I think that will cover all the bases for you.
Beautiful. What do you think of that, Aleks?
I just want to clarify. So the one day is a high rep military press, low rep squat, and the other day is low rep military press and high rep squat.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Clean and press. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying flip your microphone around, Aleks, because you were talking into the.
Yeah, I noticed that. I could see it on your face, like from your monitor.
Here's that idiot again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like it. The only thing that I would do differently, and this is just me, is just to add some rows, because obviously like cleans are very good, but I know that a lot of people they do cleans in a way where I feel like they're not going to feel them in their back the way that they should. So if I had to add anything in there and make it while keeping the minimalist idea and still making sure that you're maintaining the
this would be the Maximal-Minimalist plus
bonus.
There you go.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, we should say, like, if you know how to do the cleans right, because I'd really get that row feel to it. You can find that, right? If you're not finding that, or at least some band pull aparts, maybe, right?
Absolutely.
To get some pulling in there. Yeah, I'm with you on that. If you haven't really mastered the clean, right?
Right. Yeah, I would
master the clean. You should master the clean.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I would, if you just did goblet squats, band pull aparts, maybe some rows are hanging for your just daily warm up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're going to get a ton of mileage out of that.
Like on my giant workout that I finished with band pull aparts.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll write that down, gentle listeners. So head over to chroniclesofstrength.com. That'll be on the show notes. Pretty straightforward, but, Jim, how long would you recommend somebody to run that for?
I don't want to hear from you again for at least 6 weeks.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. I think you have to do something for six weeks to really get it. Right.
Yeah.
I think you could probably run that pretty long, right? But you have to be a good auto regulator, because you could beat the crap out of yourself with this too, right? So you got to be able to say, you know, I don't really have a lot of juice today. So maybe, you know, as many 10s as I can get in 15 minutes might be like 3 of them some days, right? And some days it might be a whole hell of a lot more than that, right? So you've got to be a good auto regulator, because the volume on this thing could get really high, and don't turn it into a beatdown.
Yeah, and stick it out too. Like I am sure if somebody sticks it out, they're gonna be happy with the results. But there's also something to be said, and Dan John has said this before, that obviously there's a limit. Obviously there's exceptions, but there's something to be said of sticking with even an otherwise mediocre program that you start with. Right.
Habits.
Yeah, just habits, right? Because so many people are in the disposition of program hopping, right? It's like, oh, look, another article from T Nation, another program. And like, I'm sure we're not here we are throwing out another new program, right? Right. So, but at the same time, like if you're going to, all I'm saying is if you, the gentle listener, decide, yes, I would like to try Dr. Jim's Maximalist Minimalist program, give it 6 weeks, stick with it for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like I limit the number of like fitness sites I'll go to, because I don't want the program hop temptation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'm susceptible to it too.
It's there's another vice there, right? That's the sin of curiosity,
Curiosity,
right?
Yeah.
Right. And people are like, why is curiosity a sin? Well, it's a sin, curiosity, in the sense that, you know, like Aquinas is thinking about it, is like just seeking information for the sake of information. So a really good example of that is like scrolling through your Facebook wall, right?
Yeah.
It's just useless information rather than really trying to acquire wisdom and grow in virtue. So that's why that's a vice. And same thing, if you're just hopping from program to program just because you're curious, but you're never applying any of it, you're never sticking with it, you're developing it. Yeah, that's a vicious habit. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so so look, I've got the Giant now, so I'm not really looking around a whole lot, because I want to stick to that for a while.
Yeah, I like that. You know, there's
fidelity, man.
You know, there's a term for it. It's actually called the low information diet, right? So the idea is like you get, it's a form of minimalism, right? You get just the amount of information you need to get your ass to work. And then while you're working, you just, you put the blinders on, right? It's like, I don't need to be in information seeking mode anymore, because now I am in implementation mode, right? And then if like you hit a real wall or you complete something, and then okay, now I need to go out and learn more. Okay, then you do it, but you put the kind of the blocks up. I like that. So I like that, you know, when you're doing the program, it's like, okay, I don't need to be, I mean, you always need to visit my website, obviously. So, but yeah, you could like, you know, block T Nation or something like that.
I like to read programs, stuff like that, but like, but stuff like I'm not gonna like go down a rabbit hole of T Nation articles right now. Right.
Yeah. And you know, like you gotta kind of like know yourself, like, you know, maybe you already have good habits and you can stick with the program, and like that's fine. But that ain't most people that I see these days, right? It's like they see it, squirrel, and they have to chase after it, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So no, we'll whip it up in a little PDF and have it ready to go.
Beautiful. All right. So is there anything else that we want to say to the general thought experiment of the maximalist minimalist? So what we did, Aleks, on our last conversation was kind of cool, because we kind of just like went through prisoner's dilemma for fat loss, prisoner's dilemma for gaining muscle with kettlebells, prisoner's dilemma for gaining strength with just 2 kettlebells. So like it's hard to answer these questions very generally, because like we have to know what we're going for. We have to know what we're dealing with. So, you know, if you're like looking for like the Maximal-Minimalist program, for like just general physical preparedness with kettlebells, I think what Jim gave you there is a great option. And if you want to add a plus to it, throw in some rows. There you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, maybe I shouldn't drag you guys into, because you already did it, but what did you come to for the fat loss?
Did I take that one, Aleks?
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, we focused on, now I don't want to, now I'm hesitant because I'm going to say something completely different, right? But that's because there could be different ways of going about it, of course. So I think I said we wanted to work. Yeah, that's right. We did, complexes, but we did, you have one heavy day, like an armor building complex.
Yeah.
You have one kind of moderate hypertrophy day, and then you have one like great destroyer, longer endurance type day.
Yeah.
And then And the assumption we were granted by the gentle listener was of course a big assumption, and that's that nutrition is in check, which is a major assumption, right? But we were granted that.
Yeah.
And then and yeah, if you can just everything's accumulation sets, right? So you got 15 minutes on the clock, just get as many high quality rounds as you can, 3 days a week of that, and then if you can walk as much as possible in between.
Yes. So that it's that walk, man. I think that's a big piece for me.
Yeah. Which is unfair, because the thought experiment says you only have 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, all right, what we gotta crank it. Yeah.
You're still a bipedal mammal, so.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So you need
non-feathered, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, as a featherless biped with upright posture, all that, we should be walking. We're set up.
Yeah. So, all right, good stuff. What else is on our minds, the agenda? Anything?
I want to hear, because you, my understanding, are stranded with but a pair of 16s. For the week.
Yes.
Is that right?
What? Yeah. I'm not actually see. We faced a dilemma, Jim. It was so Aleks isn't allowed into Lifetime because he's out of state, and everybody's got these policies
involving impeccably bad taste several years ago, but we don't talk about that.
Right. Correct. Right. So I actually just abandoned Aleks today and went to the gym anyways.
Did you? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's gonna get his. Don't worry.
Yeah, like I'm just like, see it, man. I'm going to get my lift in.
Bro, I'm gonna go work out.
Yeah. No, Aleks was busy. Was too busy working. I did, however, treat him to a gigantic plate of Euro meat afterwards, though. So we made up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a good Greek place nearby, so apology accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
But the idea was, so I thought, and will be for the most part, kind of just home for the next week and a half with just a 216. So we were kind of playing around with some ideas. Okay, what can you do with these? So yeah, why don't we just give some people ideas of what and I think like just like the double 28s are money, I think double 16s are money too. And in fact, I had a program that came out probably about a year ago that was just called 216s, and that thing sold like hotcakes. People love that thing. And it wasn't even really a structured program. It was just like, you got 216 kilogram kettlebells.
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of workouts that you can do with it, like workouts, right? Yeah,
I encountered a double kettlebell movement, I guess, exercise recently. I was doing it with 220s, okay, but I think 216s would have kicked my can on this just as much. Where you've got them racked, and you do a reverse lunge, and then you come up into a twist press, then come back, reverse lunge, come up into a twist press. And man, that was head to toes, everything smoked, pretty efficient, right? Very minimalist. And, I think a very strong guy, even with 16s, would find that much movement, that much range of motion in one movement be very challenging and very effective.
I agree. I find that the 16s are very therapeutic. They're heavy enough that you can get a lot of good, deep muscle fatigue and resistance training.
Right.
So, well, yeah, why don't we just share a couple of our favorite routines with it? So one of my favorite things to do with 16s are cycling complexes, right? So this could be like a great finisher at the end of a heavier strength workout, or if you just need to get in like a quick, routine. What I do is I'll take like anywhere between 3 to 5 exercises, say like double swing, double clean, double press, front squat, bent over row, right? So you do 1 rep the first time through of each, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then you build up until you kind of get to technical failure for any one of those exercises.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And depending how you structure the complex, that might vary, but it'll probably be like the upper body before the lower body most of the time. And then you reset, and then you start building and stacking again. Now, another way you can go about that's really cool is you can kind of fix all the exercises but one. So say it's the same thing, right? Double swing, double clean and press, front squat, bent over row. You start with 1 rep of each, but then you ladder just one exercise every time through, right? So the next time through, it's 2 double swings, 1, 1, 1, 1 of the rest, 3 double swings, 1, 1, 1, 1 of the rest, 4 double swings, 1. And then if you're feeling particularly sassy, you drop the double swing back down to run once you get to like 5 or whatever technical failure is.
Yeah.
You then fix that at 1 and then ladder up whatever the next exercise is in the chain as much as you can.
Yeah.
Drop that back down to 1, move on to the next exercise. So you ladder each one up individually to technical failure while keeping everything else just at 1 rep throughout. So you get the constant sort of metabolic systemic demands. You can challenge and train sort of one particular exercise.
It's a jog with intervals. In the middle.
Yeah. That is I think if people got something like that in your toolkit, you can get a lot of juice from that squeeze.
In the if you want to grind, just the bottoms up press, right? With a 16, that's going to be pretty challenging, right? Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Aleks, what do you got?
All right. So just using 2 16s or having any sort of a limitation like that. One of the things that I'm a big fan of in general is when you have a limitation like that, is to try to fill in gaps that you might otherwise ignore if you have more optimal equipment. So let's say, you've got as much equipment as you could possibly want, and all of a sudden you are left with just, like in this case, 2 16s. So one of the things would be, particularly if you're strong. So let's operate under the assumption that 16 kilo front squat, double 16 kilo front squat, double 16 kilo military press. These are not going to be super challenging for you. So
otherwise, this is easy, right? Just
right. Well, you have in my opinion, you have a couple of options. And so I think that one of the things that you can do is stack exercises in a way that helps them to make 1 + 1 = 3. So to give you an example, I had to train for my SFG2 recertification back in 2019. And I had a pair of 24s, I had a 32, and then I had a couple of smaller bells. And obviously, the level 2 is much more for heavier kettlebells. So one of the things I did for the press in particular, because I actually don't like single arm pressing. And at the time too, I was helping my brother with his lawn care business. And so it was like a lot of long days, and just my low back didn't appreciate the single arm press, but it liked doubles. But in terms of the doubles, I only had 24s, and I had to press a 36. So that's kind of a big jump. And now what I ended up doing is, after I got to a certain benchmark in the clean and press, I went to the snatch and press. So I would do ladders, just 1, 2, 3, but I would snatch, do 1 press, set the bells down, 2 snatches, 2 presses, meaning 1 snatch. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. I did 1 snatch to start off each ladder. So it was like 1 clean and then however many presses. Same thing, but I just switched out with snatches. And I'll tell you what, like the bells started feeling a lot lighter after I did that. And I think part of the reason is because, it's like you have to, generally with a press, you're starting from nothing in a sense, because you're starting here. You don't have the benefit of the stretch reflex. Yeah. But with the bell overhead, pulling it down and then pressing it back up, I was just able to increase my acceleration, get a bit more snatching practice in there. So you could easily do that with a pair of 16s as well. And maybe instead of laddering up, 1, 2, 3, 4, you go 2, 4, 6, 8, and you make it a little bit higher rep, right? Then
that's how Pavel did Return of the Kettlebell.
Exactly.
Like he would have you snatch those, and they were heavy, right?
Yeah.
And you bring them down, and when you couldn't snatch anymore, your ladder was done. I liked that. It was
exactly. It was very smart, and that was my inspiration for doing that, was that book. And the other nice thing too is that he has you doing a lot of uneven stuff. So it's like you might snatch a 16 and a 24 at the same time and then press them, But that's a lot of fun. Just don't do that inside if this is your first time attempting it. Do it outside. But
intermediate skill level and above. Right?
Exactly. But you know what? Here's another thing that I like, because like I said, that's one way that you can stack exercises, and then when you're done with that, pardon me, you simply do front squats, lunges, things like that. But another one is doing some in-between exercises that you've otherwise ignored. So I've become a big fan of kettlebell incline presses, and you don't need any special equipment. I just kind of lean myself up against my couch, and you have to wedge yourself in so that you don't slide all over the place. You want to be stable. But I've had a few students do that, and they're amazed. And we're talking about people who can, like one guy in particular who's doing a program right now that really leans heavily into the kettlebell double kettlebell incline press. And he's using a pair of 20s, which is, you know, a pretty reasonable amount, but he's able to press a 36 kilo bell, and he finds the 20s to be challenging because it's just an angle that he's not used to. But it's an important angle for improving your overhead press, because if you ever see somebody press heavy, like they have to open up a bit at the thoracic spine and lean back to kind of get out of the way of the bell and go back up. And so the stronger you are at that lean back, the easier it should end up being. So this is one of the things that I'm trying to find out right now, is just how much of a carryover it has. He's doing the program he's doing in particular is a muscle building program. So, you know, you might find I can press a pair of 24s. So if I'm incline pressing a pair of 16s, maybe it's not going to be enough, but that's if you do it for lower rep ranges. You know, if you go for like 8, 10, 12 rep sets, you might find that it's giving you exactly the challenge that you need. You know, when it comes to the legs, I like single leg deadlifts. I think those are great. Those are highly ignored, in my opinion, nowadays. And I don't, highly relative to what they should be. There's a nice level of skill and strength involved. And one of them is, it's just like, I feel my glutes harder at doing the single leg deadlifts than almost anything else. It's just like a huge hit. It
gives me a lot of tension for less load.
Exactly.
Less likely to shear a disc doing that than I am other things, but I have to create a lot of tension to do it, so I'm going to get stronger.
Exactly. Absolutely. And, you know, another nice thing too is that it helps you to balance out your strength on either leg, because one issue that a lot of people have is, well, I mean, almost everybody has this. You've got one limb that's stronger than the other. And so one of the nice things about, let's say, double kettlebell military press versus barbell military press is you can see the disparity. Like one arm goes up a little bit faster, maybe one arm has a different groove. So you can figure out what things you need to do in order to get things not perfectly symmetrical, but at least you're not so asymmetrical that you're likely to cause yourself issues. But then another thing that I really like for the legs is I'm always interested in finding ways to get the legs stronger and more resilient, even with lighter weights. And one squat variation I've done recently that I've really become a big fan of is the VMO squat, or the Vastus Medialis Oblique squat. Basically what it is that you have your feet, rather than planted on the ground, you have them on either a slant board, or what I've done is I have like a regular like wooden board that I put up against my freestanding pull-up bar unit, one of the bottom parts of it. And so you're going straight down. So it's not like with a standard squat where maybe your torso goes like this, you know, it kind of leans and then you stand up, right? But you just go straight down and your knees go basically straight forward. So there's a lot more knee over toe movement. You don't really need a huge amount of weight to really feel your quads working very, very hard. And it's going to hit the teardrop muscle by your knee, which is very important for knee stability. So in fact, if you're a jiu-jitsu person, Steve Maxwell, who Pat knows pretty well, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. You might have heard of him too, James. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but I read
we need to talk to Steve Maxwell sometimes, Pat.
Sorry, I'm keeping my mic muted as well. But no, Maxwell would be a great guest. We'll see if we can get him on here. If anybody's connected with Maxwell, I haven't corresponded with him in a couple of years, but that'd be a fun conversation to have him on for sure.
Sorry to interrupt, Alex. Yeah,
that's okay. I forgive you, Jim. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. But the Jim's giving me the death stare now. He's like, "You're gonna pay for that." But Vastus Medialis Oblique squat, or VMO squat, we'll call it, is a great way to even just use like one 16 kilo bell and really strengthen up the quads quite a bit, bulletproof the knees. And it allows you to use a really narrow stance too, because most people find that, you know, they have to use a moderate to sometimes wider stance with their squat, depending on their mobility. This one really biases the knees quite a bit and allows you to bypass a few other things. So I'm a big fan of those. So this would be, in my opinion, if you're limited for a period of time to 16 kilo bells and you've only got a pair of them, that's where I like to do the in-between stuff. So it might be snatch and press, you know, it might be the VMO squat. I really like double kettlebell high pulls as well. If there's any criminally neglected movement, that is it, particularly in terms of the ballistics. And, you know, by the time you go back to having access to heavier kettlebells, you're going to feel like you've taken a big leap forward rather than just spinning your wheels.
I have to say, Alex, You know, Jim and I were talking about how underrated the high pull is just a couple episodes ago. So it's almost like you were listening to the podcast again. You're muted. You're muted, Alex. You
Oh,
say.
I don't listen to your podcast.
Sure, you don't.
I feel this is a great victory that we anticipated this. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, no, it is. It's true because like it's just such a even the two-hand kettlebell swing high pull. That was actually the one Jim and I were talking about. It's just like that move is just it's kind of a no-brainer, right? It just gives you so much extra for so little extra that like why wouldn't you at least occasionally incorporate that into your training? It's just a wonderful exercise, right? I'll throw one more thing in, and I did this yesterday because I was playing with the 216s down here. And like don't be afraid of high reps, guys, gentle listeners. High reps are great. They're really good for your joints. It's just, again, as generalists, right? The high reps have a lot of unique value that you're not going to get from the like super low rep, heavy strength training. So it's a both and. And yesterday I just came down here. I had the 216s and I just did sets of double swings until they weren't pretty, right? And that's it. Like no set number. It's just like, I'm just going to crank them out, try and be, masterful, like good, snappy, get the float. And as soon as they start just looking different, right, the set's done. And then I just grabbed one of the kettlebells, went into the kneeling press, same thing at just like a moderate tempo until there was some difference in rep quality or technique. Huge pump, felt great. Switch sides, repeat. I just put that on repeat. I probably only went for like 20, maybe I went to 30 minutes. It was just one of those things where it just felt good. And I just kept going for a while. And then, you kind of just like knew when you were done sort of thing. So it wasn't structured at all, but felt really good. Aleks, I don't know. Aleks, you probably moved it out of the way. There's a little like bounceroo trampoline thing down here that my kids jump on. So I was like hopping on that, between sets, like laughing and giggling, having a great time, which was sweet. So that was good. Just like sets of swings, high rep till it wasn't even technical failure. It was way before that. It was just like whenever the rep, it's like the Bruce Lee thing is like, you don't do 1,000 kicks, right? You do one kick 1,000 times. Right. It was that thing, like trying to make every rep as consistent and beautiful as I could. And then once the consistency was gone, that's when the set stopped, right? With either the swings or the presses. And it just felt good. Right. So like I was tired, but like a very good tired, right? Very good tired. So there's another option for people.
I started talking about, I don't know if you remember, I had been playing around with a pair of 20s quite a bit. And one of my goes to was just, kind of a superset of double press and double high pull. Right. And it was Maximal-Minimalist, right? You get the hinge, some leg work on those high pulls, you get the press, you get the pull, right? Yeah. One movement that I'd love to hear your opinion about, both you guys, is the seated press, where you're kind of in that straddle position pressing, right? I've had good luck with that, when I've had to use lighter kettlebells, but I've heard people just getting wrecked in their lower back doing that too. Any thoughts on that?
Have I ever even done a seated kettlebell military press? That's the first question. I honestly don't know if I have, and not because that I have any like a priori reason against it. I just don't think I've ever done it, honestly. And I don't think I've ever programmed, like I program a lot of kneeling, a lot of tall kneeling, standing, obviously.
It's awkward to get to it, right?
Yeah. Like it just never occasioned itself in my consciousness, right? I don't know. How about you, Aleks?
Yeah, I've done them. I've done them mostly as a party trick. I remember a couple of years ago. Well, there are two different kinds of seated presses. There's like you're sitting like you would in a chair where your knees are bent, and you just press. The benefit of this is that you're more stable because obviously you have like a bit of a wider base. The drawback is you really can't use your legs, and anybody who can press heavy will tell you, your legs, your glutes, everything really comes into play when you are trying to press something very heavy. So now seated on the ground, I think that's called the Z press, or it's named after a Lithuanian strong. I think he's from Lithuania. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, but Zavika something or another. But he's a big fan of it. I think the drawback for people is that if you don't have a good seated straddle position, meaning you have to have reasonably flexible hamstrings, and reasonably mobile hips, not even anything crazy, just reasonable, then theoretically it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, you still don't have the benefit of using your glutes or your legs to help you with the military press in terms of generating the tension that helps to cheer on the pressing muscles. But I think I could see it being a problem for people's low back because, again, if you are lacking the mobility and the flexibility in one place, you're going to have to try to bend elsewhere to make it work. And if you're bending at the low back, I mean, I could definitely see that causing you some issues. I don't see why like arching the back or even just keeping it flat, as we like to say, which is still a bit of an arch, but I don't see why that would cause you any problems. But if you have the mobility to do it and you're limited in terms of the kettlebells that you have, it is a great way to get a challenging pressing workout in with much, much lighter weights.
Yeah. When I've used it in the past is when, I want to go work out at, like an open field someplace so I can run some sprints and do some kettlebells, stuff like that. And I'll just bring like my set of 20s, right? It'll be a way for me to cook the press up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Try doing it with a pair of 28s, man, because you got that pair of 28s now. Yeah. You got to give it a shot.
Up to it would be interesting, right? Yeah, right. Maybe I get someone to hand them to me, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, what is it with like taking kettlebells to fields?
It's fun, man.
Like it just is, right? Like I've got a bunch of field workouts on my YouTube channel throughout the years. Like there's a field. Let me bring my kettlebells to it. It's very romantic.
I get good sun then, right? And there's a hill right there. I do some hill sprints.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Another thing that you brought up, Alex, that it kind of made sense of recent experiences I've had is, so for instance, I like doing all those cleans and presses with the double 28s, no problem at all, right? But I've found one arm clean and pressing the 28 with any kind of, like with lots of volume, not bad, but I'll feel a little tension I don't like in my lower back the next day, right? But not with the doubles, right?
Yeah. So it's
better line. Yeah.
I like, yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is that it's, in a way, it's two different skills. And I think Dan John has even brought this up. I remember hearing a story from a level 2 that he taught many years ago where somebody had prepared for it doing, I think, moderate weight double kettlebell clean and press, meaning prepared for their one arm clean and press test. And they didn't pass the test. And so he just kind of asked him, well, what were you doing? What was your preparation like? And so the guy told him that, and he said, there really is a certain skill with a one arm clean and press. And part of it is because, your stabilizing muscles have to kick in, and your QL in the low back is a stabilizing muscle. And if it's not sufficiently strong and flexible, let's just say movable in general, I could see that maybe causing you some issues. I don't know exactly because I can't, number one, it's not really my job to diagnose that sort of a thing, but even so, it would just be hard to say what exactly it was. But I mean, for me, I definitely, and I don't know that this is the case now, but in the past, when I felt anything in the low back from one arm pressing, it was like very low in the low back. So it wasn't like the QL region. It was like the spinal erectors kind of a thing. And I don't exactly know why that is, but yeah, I'm with you. Like if that's an issue, folks, number one, get it looked at. I mean, don't just ignore it, but in the absence of the ability to maybe it's going to take you a week to get an appointment or something. Doubles, provided you have the mobility in the upper back and in the shoulders, a good way to keep pressing without making the lower back sad, let's say.
And of course, the legal team of the Pat Flynn show would ask that we not diagnose any injuries on the air.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Spoke to legal and they said no, don't do it.
Yeah. We spoke to legal. All right. Yeah. They had a lot of advice for us. By the way, so two things I want to mention. How's our sponsor doing, Jim? Did we do a sponsor shout out today?
Well, I have not consulted with the corporation, but I do know that we have many friends at Port City's Animal Hospital in Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
Okay, good.
A friend of the show.
Good. Well, we want to give them a deserved shout out. We also want to give a shout out to Bob the Chameleon,
as always,
who will be making an appearance on the show.
Yeah. We'll be able to splice some video in, probably, right?
Yeah, we can. Yeah,
I could film next time from my home and we could probably get Bob's evil gaze,
Yeah, live should we get his angry colors out? That'd be sweet.
Bob's been, with the warmer weather, he's been in a pretty good mood for Bob.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's how it works for me too. So I can relate to Bob there. So
man, he like full on attacked me basically the other day when I was feeding him. It was
man, you know what? I will put a picture of, if you don't mind, Jim. I know sometimes people are a little odd about sharing pictures of their children online, but if you wouldn't mind, I'll put the picture you sent me, because that dude is he's badass looking, man. He's got the beard and everything going on.
Yeah, no.
So we'll give people a little sneak peek of Bob the Chameleon. That'll be an extra treat on the show notes page.
Kind. He would be quite the alpha male.
Yeah, for sure. So head over to chroniclesofstrength.com. You'll get the Maximal-Minimalist write up, picture of Bob the Chameleon. I don't know what else you need to send you running over there right now.
What more?
What more? We've given so many ideas this episode, tons of stuff, ideas to use with 216s. We got that program. Try it out. Let us know how it goes. Couple favors to ask before you go. Give us your comments, give us your feedback, subscribe. Check out Aleks over at the Hammercast, the Hebrew Hammer himself. Essentially he just recycles my material, but occasionally has a few new nuggets and insights there.
Thanks for the plug.
No, Aleks is always doing great content. Obviously, we appreciate all the insights he brings. So check out his podcast. I'll link that. Check out Jim's awesome work with Tactical Barbell, Ageless Athlete. We will link that as well. And then, Jim, we're still waiting for you to get the email list together, my friend.
I do, in fact, next week have some days off, and the Philosophy of Mind project is basically in the can. So that is the next move. So
awesome.
Very quick.
So stay tuned, because Jim's putting together a nice little compendium that you guys are all going to want, and we will be sure to announce that ASAP. So, gentlemen, thank you for the delightful conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to meet you, Aleks.
Good to meet you.